All right, what is up, Flippers? It's Marcel here. Sorry if my sound quality is bad, but I'm not using a microphone now, a studio microphone. I'm just using the microphone of my laptop. So yeah, sorry for the quality. I don't know how it sounds, but I just want to make this recap for you because I'm spending the weekend away from my home. So yeah, here we are. Let's just see what has happened on Euro USD. I'm going to break down all of the trades I took today. There were 3 trades. 2 of them were break-evens, and 1 is still running, and I took partials on it. So let's just break down everything. First of all, here's the chart. I will use the bar replay tool again, but first I wanted to show you, let me just change it. I wanted to show you the markups that I sent you today. So this is the 5-minute Euro USD markup. I'm going to only use this markup in this presentation because here you can see all of the plans. So what can we see here? We can see that here's this last recent 50-minute area where I wrote that first possible short reaction. If it can give a reaction, if it can't give a reaction, then the liquidity will be swept above into the next region. So the first plan here was to wait for the mitigation of this 15-minute area. After a mitigation, wait for the confirmation entry just like it was drawn here, and the short targeting the 4-hour demand that was drawn on the 4-hour markup. If this supply fails, then we can wait for the sweep of this liquidity line right here, sweep of it into the supply above, and the same confirmation entry there as you can see. If this confirmation won't happen either, then we will be able to take longs up to the extreme supply above, which is up here. So that was the third plan. First plan, short on the last supply. Second plan, short on the supply above the last supply. Third plan, longs up to the extreme supply. Fourth plan, it is written here that extreme supply last short confirmation area. So the fourth plan, confirmation of this last area right here and short. These were the plans we were aiming for today on Euro USD, and let's just see what has happened in real time. So here's the exact time when New York session opened. I will just simply play price forward. So you know that we were waiting for a mitigation of the supply and the confirmation here. This was the first plan. So how did it play out? Price came up to mitigate the supply. There was a low percentage mitigation. After a low percentage mitigation, what can we see right here? We can see that, let me just move this. It's so bad to trade on my laptop because the screen is so small. So we can see that there was nice amount of liquidity in the low percentage of this supply. First tap, nice push away. Second tap, nice push away. Sweep of the liquidity. So all of this liquidity has been swept into the deep region of this supply. Sweep of liquidity. Liquidity got swept, and basically the 1-minute refinement has been mitigated. Also, the extreme has been mitigated here, but we don't really care about it. All we needed was a change of character to the downside, which has happened on next candle immediately. It was even a body close below of the previous low point. So there was a change of character to the downside, which did leave a wick zone behind. This was a wick zone right here, right? It's perfect and arguably a wick zone. The wick is higher than the previous candle, meaning the full previous candle has been mitigated. So it can be used as a candle, as a supply candle. The wick is the only unmitigated region, and this is the wick that has started the inefficiency to the downside. So the inefficiency is measured in between the wick's low point and the next candle's high point. So this is the inefficiency right here. And also this is a volume candle. This body is volume. You can see no wick on the downside, meaning it holds nice volume. All right. So at this point, I just did set a limit order basically here on this candle, on this supply wick, because I had all the needed criterias. I did use a 3-pip stop loss, I believe. Yeah, I used 3-pip stop loss. I was targeting the 4-hour demand here. So it was a 1 to almost 7 risk-reward ratio, potential risk-reward ratio. I was waiting for the mitigation of the zone, and the tech has happened. I was in the trade, perfect rejection, and after the rejection, price just broke below the previous low point, leaving a break-even point, possible break-even setting point behind. So I did set my break-even. Did set my position to break even. After this one, price swept me out in break even on this position. Technically, this position wasn't ready to sell yet. So here's the first break even. If you want me, I will count the criteria, but Currently, in the previous recaps, country tracking isn't so necessary because you already know the criteria, but quickly I will just count the criteria. First criteria, higher time frame mitigation. Second criteria, pro order flow. Third criteria, sweep of liquidation. Fourth criteria, inefficiency here. Fifth criteria, change of character. Sixth criteria, 50% mitigation. Seventh, V-shape recovery, perfect V-shape. Eighth, price was coming from an unmitigated opposite-sided higher time frame zone. Ninth criteria was a liquidity target. Here was perfect liquidity target. You know, it was marked on the 15-minute markup. So this is the liquidity bottom as the ninth criteria. And I was counting the strong pro-corrective pullback because shorts were much stronger than the longs. You can see it's creating this impulsive short movement and corrective pullbacks to the supplies. Impulsive short, corrective pullback to the 1 minute supply again. So it had 10 criteria, break even. That's it. We were looking for the next setup. We took a break even here. What was the next plan? The next plan was to wait for the mitigation of the supply above and sweeping up this liquidity, perfect liquidity, right? So if this first plan fails, either we take a stop loss or break even there. It doesn't matter. We will aim for the next plan. Next plan was here. Perfect. Higher supply has been mitigated. This liquidity right here, this double taps has been, or even triple or quadruple taps has been swept out, and price mitigated the supply, and there was an intense volume reaction to the downside. But it didn't mitigate the 50% of the supply. But it changed the character here to the downside. So for me, it was an entry opportunity because there were enough criteria for me to enter here. I used this supply. I used the 50% entry here. Sorry. Yeah, this is a 50% entry. I use this 1 minute supply as my entry POI. I used the 3 pip stop loss. No, a 2.5 pip stop loss. Sorry, I used the 2.5 pip stop loss here. I was targeting the same demand down here for almost 11 risk reward ratio. So at this point, price came back up to the supply, tagged me in immediately in few minutes. So I was in the trade, but this trade ended up as a break even again. Let me just explain why. It ended up as a break even because price was hesitating around the entry POI and just created equal taps right here, just below the 50% mitigation. So equal taps being created. So basically, this hesitation here and this equal tap creation here made me put my position to break even. And also price broke below the previous substructural low point. This was a substructural low point. It really created no inefficiency here, was just hesitated. So I rather decided to break even because I didn't want to become part of the liquidity for this sell trap, because this was a potential sell trap, right? But the reason I opened this position is because huge amount of liquidity has been swept already. So potentially it won't be swept out. It has a high potential that this entry won't be swept out because price previously swept out insane amount of liquidity into the supply, and there was a really strong reversal and rejection on this supply to the downside. But the liquidity creation here made me set my stop loss to break even. I didn't want to become part of the sell trap. That's it, period. It took me out in break even here on this movement. Then it would have hit my stop loss immediately. So it was a second break even position. Basically at a 9 criteria. First is the higher time frame zone mitigation. Second one is the pro order flow still. Third one is the inefficiency, perfect inefficiency started by the candle. Fourth one is the liquidation. Insane amount of liquidity got swept into the zone. Fifth one was the change of character. Sixth one was a V-shaped rejection. Seventh one was price wasn't coming from unmitigated opposite-sided zone. Eighth one was a strong pro-corrective pullback. Ninth one was the liquidity to target here. These were the criteria for this entry. Yeah, basically the reason I didn't really wait for liquidity creation for this zone is because, as I explained, price swept insane amount of liquidity here on this line, and it reversed really aggressively and created a corrective pullback back up to this supply. So just look how efficient these movements are, all efficient, no inefficiency at all. So this is strong pro. This is corrective pullback to the upside. So yeah, it made me open this position and it made me set my stop loss to break even when I saw this hesitation and the liquidity creation. Second break even. On to the next one. So at this point, I was expecting the third plan to happen, where price should have went up to this supply, sweeping out the rest of the liquidity here. But instead of doing this one, it just created another entry opportunity inside of the deep mitigation of this supply. here it is. So at this point, price swept out the sell trap. So this sell trap has been swept out into the deep region of the supply. That was a full zone mitigation, and price reversed to the downside, leaving a change of character behind again. So here's a change of character. So a third entry opportunity has been formed in basically half an hour or an hour, and it made me open again. It made me open the position again. I used the risk split entry here. So let me just explain everything around this entry, because this was the one that made some confusion in the group. Lots of you guys called it. So like 15 or 20 of you guys called this trade and really ate on it. You took profit on it. So congratulations to everyone who called this trade. Someone passed the phase 2 verification. Someone passed the phase 1 challenge pass. So yeah, congratulations to anyone who called this trade. It was a really nice opportunity. So basically, starting with the overall trade recap. You know, here was the last recent demand, real demand. This was the last low point. This was the last high point. Price broke below the last low point, broke below the last demand also. Basically, it was a change of character to the downside. So this was an extreme candle. This was the extreme supply that has caused the overall movement to the downside. But there was another inefficient weak zone, which is this one right here. And why is it our decisional zone? And why didn't we mark out this as our decisional zone? Technically, both could be decisional zones, but the difference between this wick and this candle below it is that this is just a simple stop in the market. It continued the inefficiency. It's not the starter of the inefficiency after a pullback. It's the continuation inefficiency. Inefficiency started from this candle after this structural pullback. So how does the structure look like? It was like coming up, coming down, coming up, coming down, coming up, coming down. This is a structure right here. And why do we call this as a structure? I mean, why is this a structural pullback? Because price was coming down, reacting on a substructural demand. But even if there wasn't been any substructural demand reaction, it created a pullback here, right? Price was coming down, creating this low point, creating a pullback, putting this wick above the previous candle's high point, meaning it's a structural pullback, right? Because price closed, wicked above the previous candle's high point. And if after this wick creation, the price creates inefficiency and the push to the downside, then this will be a 1 minute breakout structure to the downside. Breakout structure, this will be 1 minute breakout structure to the downside. And this will be the starter of that inefficiency that made that breakout structure to the downside, which is still a substructural break, but this is a substructural pullback, substructural break, and this is a decisional zone right here. And basically, that's why we use that area and not this one, because the inefficiency is starting from the wick in this case, because the previous candle has been already mitigated by the following wick. All of the liquidity has been taken from the previous candle. Positions and orders have been opened on this wick, and basically that's it. We count the inefficiency from the wick down to the next candle's top, and there's the inefficiency. And this candle right here did nothing else, just continuing the inefficiency. There's inefficiency in between this low, even if it's high too, but this is the continuation of the inefficiency that has started here. So this is the extreme zone, this is the decisional zone. This can be considered as a decisional zone if you want to, but this is just a simple continuation candle, nothing else. This is the extreme and this is the real decisional. So this is how we count this zone as the decisional zone, and this is how we count this zone as the extreme. And I did set a limit order here on the decisional, use the 3 pip stop loss, and I did set a limit order here on the extreme also. I will answer some more questions around this entry. Use the 2 pip stop loss, 2 pip stop loss, sorry. Yeah, I will explain everything here. So the reason I use the risk split here is because here was double taps. So basically this was a sell trap type 3, right? This was double taps. So liquidity, this extreme was part of the liquidity. I used a risk split entry because if I use the risk split entry on decisional and also on the extreme at the same time, then it will be literally making no difference. Let me just play some candles forward because it will make sense to you. So the reason I use the risk split entry here on the decisional and on the extreme is because it will no difference at all if I would have just simply used the full limit on the extreme. Why? because the decisional, it was also created liquidity. There was liquidity built up for the extreme. So this liquidity validated the extreme entry also. So if it validates the extreme entry, then basically it makes no difference here in this specific case to settle it order only on the extreme or both on the decision on the extreme, because the decisional entry could cover the extreme too with a 3 pip stop loss. So if I want to make sure that I will be in the trade, I will set a decisional and an extreme entry here too, because if I'm getting swept out, then I will be swept out on both of the positions. If I'm getting swept out, then the extreme 1% will be swept out, or the decisional 0.5% and the extreme 0.5% resplit will be swapped out also, because basically this makes no difference at all. And the reason I use the simple entry even before the liquidity creation here on the decisional is because the decisional wasn't part of the liquidity, and I want to give it a shot with a 0.5%. After this tagging, price created the liquidity, and that's where I use my other 0.5% on the extreme. So I did put my position onto the extreme here, the rest remaining 0.5% on the extreme, because price created liquidity for the extreme, and there was a chance that it will be swept out. And if it's getting swept out, then the extreme will be tag me in, and if it tags me in, then both of the positions will be running. If it sweeps me out, then it will be making no difference, because if it sweeps me out, I'm losing 1%. I will take minus 1%, right? So basically it made no difference to use the extreme only or the decision on the extreme in this case. And once again, when the setup has been formed here, even before the liquidity creation, I use decisional with 0.5% risk, and I only use 0.5% because I thought that there might be, price might be going up to the extreme also, but I just needed liquidity for the extreme, because the price, the extreme was part of this liquidity right here. So if it's part of the liquidity, part of the set trap, it requires liquidity to enter on it, right? But since the decisional wasn't part of the liquidity, for me, it was safe to enter on. And I used the 0.5% risk entry here. Then after price created this liquidity that you can see currently on the screen right here, I placed the other half, where is it? Sorry, here. So I placed the other 0.5% of the overall 1% risk on the extreme too. Because after this liquidity creation, there was a chance that price will come back up to sweep me out. Not sweep me out, but tag in the extreme too. Because, 3 pip stop loss cover the whole extreme too. Basically, that's the whole trade idea here. I believe after I explained it, it makes total sense. I really believe that it makes total sense to you, because it was a simple logic setup. So yeah, after this one, it just melted down. I took partials somewhere around here at 5 risk-reward ratio. I removed 50% off of my whole lot size at 5 risk-reward ratio. Then it's still currently running. Let me just play price forward real quick. Still currently running. Almost did hit my TP for 1 to almost 10 risk-reward ratio, but currently it's a pullback phase, and yeah, there's a chance that it will hit my TP. Still, if it hits my TP, I'm booking full position 10 risk-reward ratio. If it's not hitting my TP but goes back to my break-even point, then I'm just simply booking 5 risk-reward ratio and partials. So I hope these trades made sense to you guys. Cheers and take care.